Hey, good morning, anatomy people, or afternoon. It depends upon when you're watching this, isn't it? This is part 3 of our notes for Unit 1. We are going to be discussing homeostasis. So that's kind of funny, isn't it? Keep calm and maintain homeostasis. Well, let's figure out what it means first. Your essential question in your notes for today is, what is the etymology for the word homeostasis? If you remember last week, we talked about the words anatomy and physiology, where those words came from and what they meant, okay? What they meant because of the parts that make them up. So homeostasis is one of those words that we can break down looking at the first half of the word and the second half of the word to try to figure out what it means. All right, so here's your notes. This is part 3. Okay, so homeostasis. It's the process of maintaining the internal environment within physiological limits, which means that's your internal balance. Okay, see how this guy is balanced here on this like teeter-totter kind of thing. The word homeostasis wasn't really coined until after this process was named by Walter Cannon, who lived between 1871 and 1945. But a French psychologist first described this process much earlier than that, when he lived between 1813 and 1878. An example of homeostasis is how your body will maintain your blood glucose level within a very narrow range of 70 to 100 grams per 100 milliliter. All right, and there are many other body processes that are maintained through homeostasis as well. Homeostasis of your body fluids. This is really important because remember when we talked about this with the Dr. Oz quiz, we talked about how important it is to have enough body fluid floating around in your system. All right, now there are a couple different types of fluids that we need to look at. Okay, so homeostasis is really important for how the fluid compartments, which is kind of like what's a compartment, is how the compartments are delineated. Okay, so let's break that word down a little bit, which means it's just how they're lined out. Okay, how the compartments are lined out. So let's move over here to this picture and take a look at this. You see here we've got ICF, which is intracellular fluid. This is the fluid that's inside of cells. And we have extracellular fluid. This is a fluid outside of cells. All right, and here's the compartments that are involved with this. Intracellular fluid, this is like inside a cell, so that would be inside of all the different types of cells and tissues and so on. Then you've got extracellular fluid, which is broken down into two different types. We have interstitial fluid, or interstellar, not stellar, interstellar fluid, interstitial. And we have plasma. Now, intercellular, I can't say that word, cellular is the tissue fluid, okay? It's between the cells and it's between the tissues. Okay, it's kind of like the fluid that lines your joints, okay? And plasma is the fluid portion of your blood, all right? It's the fluid that exists between the blood cells. All right, and we see here that compositions of fluids change as substances move between compartments. You know, I know because of your previous experience, you've learned about osmosis and semi-permeable membranes, such as the phospholipid bilayer. It is a semi-permeable membrane because of the different proteins and things that are in there. Not everything can get through there. So the compositions of the fluids are going to change based upon, well, how much water you have in your body, how many electrolytes you have been consuming, and so on, and what kind of waste products are floating around in your system. So these include nutrients, oxygen, different ions, which are those electrolytes, and waste. They move in both directions across your capillary walls, depending upon what is needed on either side. It's usually driven by the concentration gradient. Homeostasis is controlled and constantly being disrupted. There are two ways that it can be disrupted: through external stimuli, which could be intense heat, like fever, cold, the chills, or lack of oxygen. Internal stimuli could include psychological stresses and exercise, and these disruptions are usually mild and they're temporary. But here's the problem. If homeostasis is not maintained, then a person may not make it. They may die. Okay, an example of that would be somebody who has a compromised immune system and they end up getting sick, like just a common cold, and their body cannot regulate their temperature. So sometimes that does happen. Somebody who has been already sick can't even fight the common cold. All right, and here's just kind of the system of homeostasis, which we're going to talk about next time. All right, so here's an example of the neural and endocrine controls. All right, how the nervous system and the endocrine system kind of work together in sensing the change and then responding to the change. All right, so this is just maintaining a controlled condition, and that's what homeostasis is all about. Your sensory receptors will detect that change and monitor the variables and then respond. This picture over here is an example of blood glucose levels, and then here's another example down here as carbon dioxide levels increase. Okay, and oftentimes they are closely linked together because of the process of cellular respiration. Okay, so if your blood glucose level drops, what happens is it's going to throw homeostasis off balance, and your pancreas is going to release glucagon, which is a hormone that stimulates glycogen breakdown. It's stimulated in the liver to release glucose into your bloodstream, and it returns back to normal. Now the opposite process, if you have too much blood glucose, okay, what happens is your pancreas will release insulin to come and scavenge that glucose out of your bloodstream and bring it back to the level it's supposed to be. All right, and here's the example of when you exercise, there's an increase of your blood carbon dioxide. And what happens is your sensory receptors detect that change. Your nervous system increases your heart rate, which in turn causes you to breathe faster. As you breathe faster, that gas exchange occurs faster, and your adrenal glands release that epinephrine. Okay, so that adrenaline, that's what that is. That adrenaline gets pumping and you're able to exchange the gases like you're supposed to. All right, well, that concludes our notes for today. What I would like for you to do is go back and answer that essential question, break down this word homeostasis. Where does it come from? What does it mean? Okay, I'll talk to you in class. Bye-bye.